Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, friend. It's your host, Lara Jane. I am so excited to be here with Ben. Ben's my new friend, and we just met, and I'm so excited to chat with him because he has that same message that I do as really how do we change that internal dialogue? How do we make us become more kind to ourselves? Quit beating ourselves up. And so how can we cultivate that self-compassion and that self-love while we have that voice in our head that sometimes wants to doubt everything we're doing? So everything about Ben on how to get a hold of him, what he does is in the show notes already for you so that we can maximize your time and let Ben just share his wisdom with us. So Ben, I am so excited to have you with us. I love your message. That's why I reached out to you. Please help my busy professional friend to be able to start to be kind to themselves again.
Thank you so much, Lara Jane, for having me. It's really good to be here. So I'm a self-development coach, and I usually work with people to understand their self-doubts and their negative self-talk so that they can really grow into confident, successful, and impactful professionals, because that is, I guess, what we all aspire to be. And in order to do this, I really feel that understanding that voice inside our head, that person that either says to go and do this or go and do that, or you're not good enough or you can't or whatever else, if we can't become friends with that person, like in your message, if we can't learn who that person is and how to speak to them and how to understand them, well, then our outside world isn't going to reflect anything much more positive than our inside world is. I want to, if it's all right, give you a bit of a background on my past and my history, where I come from. I originated from Australia. I grew up having a lot of self-doubt and depression, and throughout school, I kind of felt this heaviness of, I can't do this and it's all too much. I grew up to quite an academic family, and that put a lot of pressure on me to succeed in the same way that they were succeeding. And school wasn't necessarily the way that I learned. School wasn't the type of way that I learned. And so therefore I believed I was stupid. I was dumb. I couldn't do it. All these kind of thoughts would come back to me. And even if my parents or my family didn't put that on me, it didn't make a difference, because if I put that on me, then that was my reality. Mm-hmm. And, I went from about 8 years of heavy depression and drug abuse to try and numb the pain and find some kind of way out. And, all of this until it got to a point where I had read my first self-help book, The Power of Now. And I remember the first time that I actually became aware that I thought that these thoughts are something that are happening to me rather than something that I can actually control. And when I became aware that I have control over my thoughts, and it's actually these thoughts most of the time, 96% of the time, or whatever it is, that are the subconscious thoughts that are just happening to us, that the inner world, the emotional world of what I'm speaking about, what I'm thinking, is just kind of detrimental, and it's harsh, and it's depressing, and it's not beneficial to me at all. And as I became more aware of the type of words that I was using, the type of thought that I was having, I became more aware that I could change the voice in my head, because at the end of the day, the voice in our head is just us, right? It's just a part of us. And when we acknowledge that this part of us is really just a part of us that is trying to protect us and is trying to look out for us. These ideas of I can't, or you'll fail, or, don't even try. They're just parts of us that want to keep us safe and want to keep us, in that comfort bubble of, if you go out and you fail, well, then what? So maybe don't try. And we have to begin to acknowledge these parts of us as actually really beautiful parts that want to protect us, and that, we don't want to shut them off or shut them out, because they're going to be there. They're a part of us. It's like, you have that donut, and there's a part of you that says, oh, I really want to eat that donut. And the other part of says, no, you shouldn't eat that donut. And so you've got these two different identities of what's going on inside you. They're both you. They're both this beautiful part of wanting the best for you. Why yes to eat the donut? Why no to eat the donut? They both have, things to listen to and things of benefit for your life. But then taking that bit of, I guess, kind of space and awareness of, okay, I don't have to listen to this voice if I don't want to. I can hear it. I can acknowledge it. I can appreciate its existence, but I don't actually have to do everything it says if I don't want to. And I can choose something else to do. I can choose to say something else to myself. I can consciously decide that if I hear a voice in my head saying, don't go out and do this, well, then I can also say, you know what? I can go out and do this. And we can play that game within ourselves, and we can learn to really appreciate that voice in our head, and take it even a step further to even laugh sometimes at that voice in our head. You get to a point where it kind of says something. A lot of times it's really arbitrary. It's this, I could never, amount to that. And then when you take a second, you're just like, how would you possibly know what you could never amount to if you're not going to, this idea, I'll never, I could never be this type of person. And I was like, where did that come from? You could never be that type of person. It's almost a thought to laugh about, rather than to take in, oh my gosh, you're right, I could never be that type of person. So I think becoming aware of this voice and acknowledging that it is there for our protection, and it's actually something that with practice you can begin to appreciate this bully in our heads, this voice in our head, because it is a really beautiful part of us that we're never taught to appreciate. We're never taught to listen to, but not, I guess, but not listen to not, act upon. Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because, I had those voices in my head. I had that thing that told me I could never amount to anything. I had that voice, and I had to start talking to my bully and making sure that there was dialogue and not just the submission. And I'd have to say, hey, you're right. Right now, at this moment, with what I know, that's not me. But I have the ability to change. I have the ability to grow, and I have the ability to choose my destination. So you're not telling him he's wrong. You're not shutting him down and putting him in the back closet. You're acknowledging his thoughts or hers, the thoughts, the process, and then freeing yourself to do what you want to do. You're not locked into it. And so I love that message. And the donut thing, I tell donut stories all the time because they're such a huge thing. And you do have that friend and that bully on your shoulder, and one's going, don't eat it. It will make you fat. The other one's going, oh, but it tastes so good. Have it. And you have to choose. And at that moment, you get to say, today I'm going to choose to have that donut because, or today I'm going to choose to not have it because. And even though you have these voices in your head, you still have a choice and you still get to choose and you still get, and that is so empowering to have choice instead of just dictation. We get to choose.
100%. And I love that that idea of that really is where that freedom comes from, because it's not just a matter of I can't do this. It's a matter of maybe, I can't do this or I can do this. Am I going to choose to go and do it or not? There's still like you can go out and do it regardless of if the thought says you can't, and then you've done it. And then, well, what did that thought mean if you went and did something that you couldn't do, but you did? And then, you realize, oh, so this isn't fact and reality and the end all of everything, this thought. There was a nice example that I had, which slipped me for now.
It'll come back. They're really good at that. Only when it's really important, they decide to play hide and seek.
Totally.
So with this thought of choice, we're talking about self-love and that little voice. And how do we change it to be more loving and more supportive? You can't take that you can't do this thought out of your head. It happened, but now you get to add more dialogue to it and give yourself the ability to be more than what that little voice says. And how do you teach your practitioners to teach people to do that?
So what I really love as a thought practice, as an inner dialogue, is to really challenge the thoughts, the negative thoughts, the limiting thoughts that we have, because we all have them, but they can always be challenged. They can always be, there's always a flip side. Often people will say to me, what if I can't show up? What if I don't do a good session? What if I don't close the deal? And I say to them, what if you do? Have you thought about what if you do close the deal? What if you do get the client or make the sale or, whatever else it is? And they're like, oh, I guess I never thought of that way, the what if, the positive side. And, one thing that I do for myself, which I really like, is often if something happens, whatever the situation is my mind will start racing at a million miles to try and understand the situation, right? Where you have that where if someone's late, you give 100 reasons as to why he's late. They couldn't care. They don't, he's forgotten. He's this, maybe he's in an accident. Maybe this has happened. Or if, I don't know, the client says no, there's 100 reasons why they said no and the sale didn't go through, and that the brain races. And I like to just tell myself, just simply, you just don't know. Because at the end of the day, I don't know really anything that's happening outside my own reality. I don't know why something happened a certain way, why someone said what he said. If he was having a bad day, if he was late because something really, actually did happen, or the sale didn't close because who knows? And so even just challenging that idea of you just don't know. I don't know the situation. I don't know the reality. I'm not going to start playing in all these ideas of the what if that happened and what if that happened, because it's not beneficial. It's not serving me well. And for me to just kind of say, well, I just don't know, it kind of just takes it off my shoulders as, well, it's a me problem, or it's because of something I did, or it's, a reflection of me or whatever else. And I think, challenging the ideas, challenging the thoughts, the limitations that we often put on ourselves can show a different light to that voice. Can just flip that voice around from the negative side of things, the obstacles that it's going to give us to the possibilities, to the opportunities.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like to do is remind myself that life's all about pop quizzes. And that if I thought that I had gained control over this negative thought and one pops in my head, it's like, oh, pop quiz. How am I going to deal with this? Am I going to let it set me back? Or am I going to change it up and move forward and move past it and not let it hold me back? That inner voice that tells us, wait, slow down, stop, is really trying to protect us. It doesn't realize that we're not 10,000 years ago. We're today. And we don't need as much protection in the areas of the saber-toothed tigers and eat me as, like if you go in this part of the woods, there's a tiger. Don't go there again. We don't have that. But our bodies go through that same thought process. Oh, there was somebody in that grocery store that was rude to me that one time, so I'm never going to that store again. It's like, all of a sudden, you haven't protected yourself one bit. Yeah. It's really, how do I find that balance to acknowledge those negative protecting voice and say, you're not wrong. Thank you for protecting me. I'm going to choose this path. I'm safe. And I think reminding ourselves that we're safe is important too.
Totally. And I think that's a beautiful example that made me think of how often that we can misinterpret someone's tone or someone's facial expressions and have, all these ideas of what they think about us. It's they might have had a bad day or whatever, said something snappy to us, and then all of a sudden, like, we're in the wrong, we've done something, he's a bad person, they're an idiot, they're an asshole, they're this, that, all of these like massive things that just kind of come out of nowhere when someone maybe, I don't know, just got off the phone and something happened, and then he walked past without saying hello or whatever the situation. And so often we put these stories in our head because we don't necessarily feel comfortable with ourselves in the situation. Often we have to put the situation at blame rather than an acknowledgement that maybe we just need to feel more comfortable in our own skin. Maybe we need to feel more comfortable in that if someone is in a bad mood and raises their voice or says something upset or whatever, that's not necessarily a reflection on us. That's a reflection on the mood he's in or her. That's a reflection on how their day's going. That's not a reflection on how our day's going. And to flip that around on, like you said in that head, that we're safe and we're okay and, we're doing our best. And, this idea of just, we're also human. And if I say something silly, then okay, like if I, stuff up, if I make a mistake, I'm human, and it's not that I'm to fault, and it's not that I'm an idiot, and it's not that I'm stupid and I can't do this. It's just, for me personally, I love my own kind of human mistakes that I make, and I can relate it to when everyone does this all the time. We're eating and we'll still bite our tongue or our lip or, whatever. And it's like, how many meals do I have to have in my life to not bite my own tongue? Like, surely by now I know where my tongue is or my lip is. And so I feel like if we can do something as mundane as, biting our own tongue when eating, which we really shouldn't be doing because we're so practiced at that, then literally anything else, we can be forgiven for making a mistake, or we can be forgiven for doing something wrong. And that goes with also the type of self-talk that we have. Often clients will tell me, I get really upset with myself when I become aware that I'm speaking negatively to myself, and I know I should be doing better, and I know that this isn't how I should be doing. And then they get angry with themselves or frustrated with themselves for knowing that they shouldn't be speaking negatively, but they are. And then it's like, well, that's a double whammy, isn't it? Then not only are you speaking negatively, but then you're getting upset with yourself for speaking negatively, rather than acknowledging that, okay, we're human. We have this voice in our head, like you said, the primal, instinctive, fight or flight, savor ourselves voice that, is our biggest kind of drive as far as, our nature is concerned, our biology is concerned, this kind of fight or flight fear factor of, that's what drives us, or that's what drove us. And now in our life, that's not necessarily how we want to be driven. But if that is something that we become aware of, and we have, and we will have, then don't give it a double whammy of being upset with not being able to think better or do better. Just acknowledge that and sit with it. Try and understand, maybe where this thought comes from. How much truth does this thought play? How much truth does this actually, how much weight does this hold? Or can you find flaws in it? Can you find, holes in this thought process, in this, sense of identity that you're having in this moment? And I think in the grand scheme of things, to be kind to yourself and to forgive yourself for saying these things, because if we can bite our own tongue, then we can do a lot of things that we might not mean to do, and that's okay. We're on this journey, we're on this path, we're learning, we're falling down. Imagine a child if they started walking and they got down and they're thinking, I can't do this. I'm stuffed. I can't do this. This is not for me. I tried walking. I fell down. I'm screwed. I'm done. Nah. We'd all be crawling still.
Or just laying there in bed waiting for someone to change our diaper.
Crying.
I don't want to do that one. Oh, Ben, you are triggering so many thoughts in my head. And it's like, oh, how do we get this all out in our short little time? It's just an amazing process here. But we're going to just take a quick break. We're going to have a word from our sponsor. When we come back, I want to continue this primal thinking versus what we could really get by today. So we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
So Ben, while you were talking, I just kept thinking, way back when somebody couldn't survive on their own. And it was so critical to be liked by your tribe because they were going to help keep you safe. And we learned all this, filter your thoughts and brains to be liked, to be a part of a larger team. We were very locked in geographically to where your team could be. And so you had very limited amounts of people to connect to. But now we're global and I can connect with anybody. And I can tell that brain, hey, I understand you're trying to fit in, but I have a tribe out there. And there's somebody who likes me for my authentic self and not my filtered self that was going to keep me safe 10,000 years ago, but I don't need today. And so turning off that primal, acknowledging it, that it's doing its job. Yes, at one point in eternity, we needed to be nice to others to be accepted. Now it's more important for me to be nice to me so that I am genuine and the people who like me are there. And then you kept bringing up this part about, and this isn't the word you use, but is it true? When we have those thoughts, and Byron Katie is the one that her book is just, is that true? Is that true? Like, oh, my mom doesn't love me. Is that true? Really searching it back. If it matters enough to you, her process gets back to, oh, it's not true. I can drop that thought. It's going to come back. But next time you ask her, you're going to know, no, it's not true a lot quicker than going through the whole process of figuring it out. So really, when we have those thoughts, acknowledge that they are there for a reason. Acknowledge that we're in a new day and age and we can be authentic, and really know that it was true in a feeling, but not real. And just that balance. So I know I have to play tricks with my brain, and I have to think through it. Like, I have to play the word switcher. Like,
your
okay,
brain
this is
plays
what
tricks with you.
it's like, here's what I'm thinking. Now, why is that not true? And how do I change the sentence to not be limiting? And it's like, and here I'm taking over the conversation, but 30-ish years ago, I wore 2 different colored shoes to work. I did not leave my desk. I had my feet hidden all day long. I was embarrassed. I thought, I cannot believe I actually did this. I called my husband and I got him to bring me a pair of shoes. He didn't know which ones to bring, so he brought me this huge bag of shoes. And it's just like 30 years later, I do the same thing and I laugh. And I wore my brown and black shoe the whole friggin' day. I didn't care because you know what? It didn't change how well I did my job. It didn't change how well, you know what? If someone wants to think I'm weird because I wore, you know what? That is your prerogative. I just got up in the dark, snuck out, and I happened to have shoes of the exact same thing in different colors. So they didn't feel funny. So 30 years apart, I was ready to hide in shame. And the other one is like, oh, well, life goes on. That's a long time of processing to acknowledge that we're not always going to be like everybody else, like we think everybody else wants us to be, but we can still be us.
Yeah, 100%. And, they say you put out your vibe, you attract your tribe. And I think that is really when we do have this sense of wanting to belong and wanting community and wanting to feel like we're a part of something and, all of these things. And so often we try to belong in the wrong circles and the wrong groups that we never quite belong. We and I feel like people know when they're in the wrong circles. They know when they're in the wrong groups. They know when they're not being authentic to be liked by the people that aren't being authentic to be liked. And, it's this kind of like battle of who can be less authentic to be liked by the other people that aren't being authentic. And, and
just waste the energy.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like you will go, there are so many people out there and so many different types of people. And, the idea that your authentic true self doesn't have other people that resonate with that or appreciate that or are, super similar to that or don't think the same or whatever else. In today's day and age, we know with the amount of types of people out there that that's not a thing, So if we can encourage people to be themselves, then they will attract people that are similar to themselves. And then they won't have to try and think about how I'm going to answer this question or what am I going to say or what am I going to wear so that they like me. They'll just do what is them and they will be liked. It's so much easier on everyone. It feels so much better. It actually represents what the type of belonging we desire and the type of feeling part of something that we desire and we long for and whatever else. And it literally can happen by by doing the one thing that we should know how to do, which is being us. But because we've been so practiced in being someone else, we're so practiced in, thinking how we think they're going to want us to think, or acting in a specific way that society wants us to act, or that group of people want us to act. We're so practiced in not being us that we need to, take, and it's a crazy thought, right? That we're most people are more practiced at being not themselves than they are practiced at being themselves.
Oh yeah. Smile and they'll like you. Smile, there's just this domestication that we went through as children. Do this and you're like, do this and you fit in, do this. You don't want to stand out. You don't want to draw attention.
Good boy, good girl.
It's like, no. But there's this really weird magic. And I used to be a lot more judgy on other people. But the more I practiced letting myself be me, the more I didn't care about what other people do. All of a sudden, magically, it was allowing everybody to be their authentic self, not just me. It was like, this is crazy. I love it. I love that I'm not caring how other people act, and it doesn't make or break my day. But I think back and I go, oh, that person acting like that years ago would have put me in a tailspin, sent me home in a depression. And it doesn't happen like that anymore. So when you learn to give yourself that freedom to be you, it starts doing that for other people too. It's kind of cool.
Totally. And like, I walk around barefoot everywhere, and I, for years, I kind of felt a bit uncomfortable with it because I would get a lot of stares, and especially, if I'm going to a supermarket or a mall or, wherever, and I would get looks. And, at first it was kind of like, maybe I should be putting shoes on, maybe, I should be conforming and whatever. And then it was a matter of, you know what, I'm actually going to do this because I want to train myself to not care what people think. I want to go through that process where I'm going to feel uncomfortable being myself and getting the looks and maybe getting the judgments and getting the this and the that and whatever. I'm going to go through that because for me, it's worth the putting myself in that line of fire and then coming out the other end unscathed, and untouched from it. And building that kind of those defenses and building those barriers of, you can look, you can say, you can this, you can laugh, you can make, snide comments or whatever, or the sarcastic comments of, the amount of times I get, oh, do you forget your shoes at home? Or, do you want a pair of shoes or, whatever else? And, now it's just kind of funny. It's like, oh, you're right. I got completely dressed up and I completely forgot my shoes at home. Like, obviously I didn't forget my shoes at home. I really enjoy walking around barefoot. I'm going to do something that I like doing, to especially when I'm out the majority of the time, to do, something that I don't want to be doing for so much for other people. For me now, that's crazy. I deserve to do something I want to do. I deserve to, walk around barefoot if that's what makes me happy, and if that's what connects me, and if that's what, I want to do. Like, who is anyone else? And regardless of who is anyone else, but why does it matter what anyone else thinks about if I'm wearing shoes or not? This kind of like thought. And when we break that down, when we actually go into, well, what are shoes? What is this idea that it's so weird that we put these socks and these shoes on our feet, and if we don't, then we're an outsider and we're weird and we get looks at because we don't close our feet up, but we can wear sandals and that's okay because there's still something under us. And you break down this idea and it's like, well, all right, so he doesn't have shoes, what does that impact on who I am or what I think or what I can do,
How long did it take you to go from being frustrated that people would point it out to being okay with it?
In my journey, when I really started to spiral down again, I realized that I needed drastic change. I realized that, I couldn't go back to where I was as a late teen, and I really needed to do something, and I needed to go full into it. I read a couple of books, and I was had an injury that I was in bed, so I had this time to just really delve into all these talks and this and that and whatever. And then I went hitchhiking with two friends in Europe. And during my time there in Europe, I was backpacking and I was hitchhiking, and I was, a really long beard and big hair and dirty and barefoot with this, and it was this full hippie kind of vibe and whatever else. And I was just really trying to, as strong as I could, break all these barriers, all these social norms, all these thoughts that were like, you have to be this way, and this is what society expects of you, and this is what life is about, and this is what you have to be this certain way in order to be liked. So me personally, I wanted to really break that down as quickly as possible. So I think within about 3 months, I was laughing at the fact that I could turn people away because I had bare feet, or I would be, even when I came and I had showered and I was more kempt and whatever else, that I could turn people really to that. Like, it amused me of just, wow, one, I'm so not there, and I'm really grateful that I'm not there. But two, it brought this compassion that I felt sorry that these people would get offended by someone else's actions that don't affect them in any way, shape, or form, without having any idea of who I was as a person, that I could somehow actually physically offend someone else. It brought on compassion, and it brought on this feeling of really wanting to be myself more and more. It just brought on this drive to just being more authentic, or being to breaking those barriers down more and more, because it became more and more clear to me, I guess, of, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what I think of myself, and that became so crystal clear that I could, I was passing absolute strangers. What do I care what an absolute stranger thinks of me? For good and for bad, at the end of the day, if I'm okay with what I'm doing, if I teach love and happiness, and I'm not out to hurt anyone, and I, am there sharing positivity and happiness, if that is going to get on someone's nerves, that is their problem. That is not my problem. I'm not going to take that on myself. They have their own, journey to go down, and their own demons to uncover. And, I'm here to walk my life. And there is nothing more empowering than, I think, coming to that realization and of befriending, all the demons in my own head of, I need to act in a certain way to be happy in someone else's eyes, or accepted in someone else's eyes. And a lot of the times, the people that we're trying to please aren't even the people that we want to please. It's like we're trying to please this guy who we don't even necessarily like. That person, we don't even necessarily think he's a good person, or whatever else, but we're still trying to please him. And we can backbend over trying to please the people that aren't necessarily worth it in our lives. They don't deserve necessarily the type of our energy, or our bending over backwards to please them, if they're not going to be happy with who we are as a person. And
I think you bring up a good point, because really we need to be true to ourselves, and we do need to be kind to the people around us. It doesn't give you a blank slate to be rude and get in people's faces.
Of course.
But how they respond to us is not our problem. And I have to remind myself of that because there are personalities and there are things that trigger me. And I have an immediate negative response and I have to go, this is me. This is my issue. That person has 100% freedom to be them. They do not have to act different just because I am in the room. That is me. And so I've practiced a lot of just reframing and going, it's okay. I don't have to play this game. I am the one that's triggered. They do not have to change. I have to change my response. And I've worked so many years on this. It's not fixed all the way yet, but it's better. And the negative grungy of that trigger is a lot shorter. So I have a problem when I feel like someone's being fake. And I just want to shake them and go, come out of there. And I just have to go, you know what? It's okay. That is where they feel good. That is where they have been domesticated to the point they feel it's their responsibility to be happy all the time. And it's okay. If I don't like it, it's okay. But I don't have to be angry at that person for it. And that's where I'm like, it's okay to not like something. But I don't have the freedom to not like that person just because they're being them.
Yeah. And I think that's super beautiful, that idea. And that's, a concept in NLP, in your linguistic programming, of, everyone is doing the best that they can with the information they have. This idea that everyone has had their own journey, everyone's got their own thoughts and their own past and their own history. And if we can accept, if we can believe, and if we can take on this idea that everyone really is trying to do the best that they can with the knowledge that they have, with the reality that they have, with the thoughts that they have, with the history that they've gone through and whatever else, we realize that people aren't bad. People aren't trying to do bad. People are trying to do what they think is right. People are trying to, I really believe that people are trying to be inherently good all the time. It just depends on where they're at in their own journey, in their own learning, in their own, sometimes someone feels that they need to put someone else down in order to feel good about themselves, right? We have the classic idea of the bully who is hurting. They say hurt people hurt people. And it's that idea that these people are in their head and they're trying to do right for themselves. They're trying to bring themselves up or whatever else it is, but they're trying to do the best that they can. And I think if we can also accept that, that will kind of take off a lot of the pressure of, how people respond to us or how people are acting towards us, and whether or not it's our fault or it's not our fault, or if they're right or they're wrong or this or that, because I think we all just are trying to do.
Hello, friend. It's your host, Lara Jane. I am so excited to be here with Ben. Ben's my new friend, and we just met. And I'm so excited to chat with him because he has that same message that I do, as really, how do we change that internal dialogue? How do we make us become more kind to ourselves? Quit beating ourselves up. And so how can we cultivate that self-compassion and that self-love while we have that voice in our head that sometimes wants to doubt everything we're doing? So everything about Ben, on how to get a hold of him, what he does, is in the show notes already for you. so that we can maximize your time and let Ben just share his wisdom with us. So, Ben, I am so excited to have you with us. I love your message. That's why I reached out to you. Please help my busy professional friend to be able to start to be kind to themselves again.
Thank you so much, Laura Jane, for having me. It's really good to be here. So I'm a self-development coach, and I usually work with people to understand their self-doubts and their negative self-talk so that they can really grow into confident, successful, and impactful professionals, because that is, I guess, what we all aspire to be. And in order to do this, I really feel that understanding that voice inside our head, that person that either says to go and do this or go and do that, or you're not good enough, or you can't, or whatever else, if we can't become friends with that person, like in your message, if we can't learn who that person is and how to speak to them and how to understand them, well, then our outside world isn't going to reflect anything much more positive than our inside world is. I want to, if it's all right, give you a bit of a background on my past and my history, where I come from. I originated from Australia. I grew up having a lot of self-doubt and depression, and throughout school, I kind of felt this heaviness of, I can't do this and it's all too much. I grew up to quite an academic family, and that put a lot of pressure on me to succeed in the same way that they were succeeding. And school wasn't necessarily the way that I learned. School wasn't the type of way that I learned. And so therefore I believed I was stupid. I was dumb. I couldn't do it. All these kind of thoughts would come back to me. And even if my parents or my family didn't put that on me, it didn't make a difference, because if I put that on me, then that was my reality. Mm-hmm. And, I went from about 8 years of heavy depression and drug abuse to try and numb the pain and find some kind of way out. And, all of this until it got to a point where I had read my first self-help book, The Power of Now. And I remember the first time that I actually became aware that I thought that these thoughts are something that are happening to me rather than something that I can actually control. And when I became aware that I have control over my thoughts, and it's actually these thoughts most of the time, 96% of the time, or whatever it is, that are the subconscious thoughts that are just happening to us, that the inner world, the emotional world of what I'm speaking about, what I'm thinking, is just kind of detrimental, and it's harsh, and it's depressing, and it's not beneficial to me at all. And as I became more aware of the type of words that I was using, the type of thought that I was having, I became more aware that I could change the voice in my head, because at the end of the day, the voice in our head is just us, right? It's just a part of us. And when we acknowledge that this part of us is really just a part of us that is trying to protect us and is trying to look out for us, these ideas of I can't, or you'll fail, or, don't even try. They're just parts of us that want to keep us safe and want to keep us, in that comfort bubble of, if you go out and you fail, well, then what? So maybe don't try. And we have to begin to acknowledge these parts of us as actually really beautiful parts that want to protect us, and that, we don't want to shut them off or shut them out, because they're going to be there. They're a part of us. It's like, you have that donut, and there's a part of you that says, oh, I really want to eat that donut. And the other part of says, no, you shouldn't eat that donut. And so you've got these two different identities of what's going on inside you. They're both you. They're both this beautiful part of wanting the best for you. Why yes to eat the donut? Why no to eat the donut? They both have, things to listen to and things of benefit for your life. But then taking that bit of, I guess, kind of space and awareness of, okay, I don't have to listen to this voice if I don't want to. I can hear it.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.